organic sourdough bakery that sources fine ingredients locally with an ever-changing seasonal menu in the ski resort of Whistler in Canada. Now, they're both originally from the UK. Natasha is a former English teacher and Ed is a professional fine dining chef. Earlier this year, the husband and wife team won the Best Youth Entrepreneur Award at the Small Business British Columbia Awards. And today they are coming to us. This shows their dedication live from their vacation in Montreal. So welcome, Ed and Natasha.
Thanks for having us,
Katrina. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's so good to have you here because I know you've been listening to the show a lot, and one of the requirements, I don't know if people know this, is that people have to have been running their business for at least 3 years to be on the show, unless they've run other businesses in the past, because it can be, quote, easy enough to kind of start a business, but to actually maintain it and to have the insights to share, you need to have done it over a little bit of time. And I'm so pleased that you've hit that 3-year mark, and I've watched you grow, and I know how hard you work. So I'm delighted to have you on Vegan Business Talk to share some of your learnings and your insights. So let's kick off with the first question, which is literally, how did 2 young Brits end up running a vegan bakery in a ski resort in Canada?
Well, I think we were destined to work together. I sort of pushed away from it for years and years, but I think we're both very passionate people and hardworking people, and it was organically came together. Basically, I think our paths were destined to work together.
We were working in the UK. Yeah, so we were working in the UK, and Ed was a chef at a head chef at a little boutique hotel, and I was working as an English teacher. And for me personally, I did quite well in my career, and I got promoted, and I ended up marketing the school at conferences and to universities and doing all sorts of contract agreements with different courses, and it was quite interesting. And then through circumstances outside of the school, this whole kind of industry had a big shift, and my role that I had as marketing academic course coordinator kind of came to a halt, and it was kind of null and void, and I felt really deflated, and I really wanted a break from that career when you just put all your efforts into something and then it kind of ends up resulting in not much at all. I wanted a break, and Ed was kind of at a point where he'd achieved a lot of success, and actually he was starting to get quite a lot of notice by the BBC. He was getting interviewed to like audition for chef programs and stuff like that. But I think at that time he wasn't he was a bit nervous about being in front of the camera, and it wasn't really what he was feeling. And we both just needed a bit of a break and a change. So we thought, let's go to Canada for a year and do 6 months in a ski resort and just have fun snowboarding, and 6 months in Montreal. But when we got to Whistler, we actually really loved it and we didn't want to leave. And while I was in Whistler, I went vegan back in 2014. So my second year in Whistler. And we also never made it to Montreal until just yesterday we arrived. So 8 years later for a vacation, though, this time not to work. So once I went vegan, Ed soon went vegan. And well, I didn't want to have any animal products in the house. And so he was eating vegan at home for a while. And then eventually it just rubbed off on him a few documentaries later.
Nice.
And then I remember being at a party and somebody asked him, it was a vegan like potluck. And somebody said, are you vegan, to Ed? And he went, yes, I'm vegan. And I nearly fell over across the road because like this fine dining chef that used to be really proud to like butcher animals and use every part of them was now telling people he was vegan. I was like, yes. So
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So eventually I had this kind of idea that I wanted to open this vegan cafe, and it would be this like community hub. And then Ed went on his own journey into making bread, and he can tell you about that. But eventually we kind of morphed our ideas. Can you tell me about the bread?
Yeah, so like Tash said, I've worked in fine dining kitchens all my life. Loved making everything from scratch, using seasonal produce. And then I found sourdough about 14 years ago in Bristol in a small sort of French bistro restaurant, and sort of learned with the head chef. And really fell in love with the simplicity of it, of flour, water and salt, and then brought that to to Canada when I started working at a farm to table restaurant there. We were making everything in house, but not the bread. So I sort of said to the owners, the head chef, I'd be, happy to start making sourdough here. And it just grew. I was baking on my days off and for our yoga studio. And people were like, where can we buy this? And organically, like, it just got the cogs turning. We were like, well, maybe we can start a small business. There's no one really making sourdough at this time. It was 2016. And I just approached the owners and said, can I rent the kitchen? Because we weren't open for lunch. So I said I could make the sourdough on the Wednesday morning and then put it in the fridge. It ferments all day and all night. And then I bake it fresh on the Thursday morning. And it was all through Facebook. It was mostly young mums, families that would buy it. And it became just word of mouth and trust. I didn't have a payment system. It was all just done pre-order. I'd put their name in a little book and then they'd come and pick it up. And when they picked up, I said, hey, do you want bread next week? What is it? Okay, I do one loaf, one type. So it'd be sesame, sourdough, or walnut and fig or something like that. And it was moving market research. It was really good because I didn't have to, input a lot of money. I already had the kitchen space, the equipment. I bought some tins and some containers. I probably spent, £500, $1,000, which is nothing for a startup. And it just grew and grew. We started with baking 30 loaves for friends in the yoga studio. And then it went to 50 and 100. And then we were averaging 150. And I definitely grew out the equipment.
And the customers were saying
that was when the customers
when
were
are you going to open a shop? Like, we want to buy this every day. We don't have to wait once a week. So we saw the demand.
And that's where we sort of crossed paths and we said, okay, well, we could open a bakery. We could sell our house in the UK, which was an old Victorian house that we were rented out, so it wasn't making us money. It needed a lot of work. So we were like, well, we're residents now. Let's sort of sell the house, invest that money, borrow a bunch more money and open up a brick and mortar bakery.
Wow. I love that. I love that story. I know I've heard bits of it, but I haven't heard it in the full the full thing. So I think that's really interesting, and I love that you actually did that research, like you said, like you outlaid a small amount of money to test the market. Some people will go to markets, do market stalls,
exactly,
but I love that you found this opportunity where it was risk-free. If it didn't work, you put in a £500, no big deal, and you obviously learned a lot. So you obviously got that customer demand. Because it's interesting, because somewhere like Whistler, it's not necessarily, not that I've been to Whistler, but it's not, like a big city that's vegan friendly, where it could be, quote, easier to open up a vegan business. So tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced in opening up your own store and how.
First of all, there was a lot of negativity around the location. So Whistler Mountain is part of a ski resort, Whistler Blackcomb, and the main village is Whistler Village, and the original village where one of the gondolas is Creekside, and that's where we are. So we're actually 5 kilometers south of the main village on the backside of Whistler Mountain. And when we moved to Whistler, Creekside Village was empty, and there hadn't been really anything in these spots. And it was really weird for us because we have 2 to 3 million tourists a year come to Whistler, and we're 2 hours away from Vancouver. So even though we're not in a city, we have a lot of city people, and they might have lots of vegan options in their city. And when they come on a ski trip, they want home away from home and they want options. So it doesn't matter to us that we're in a rural location with only 10 to 12,000 permanent residents when we see so much foot traffic from other places. So that's the one thing, is that we're not in a city, but we have city people visiting us, especially day trippers from Vancouver and people with timeshare and holiday homes, that kind of thing. So at first, all of our neighbours said, why are you opening in Creekside? Creekside's a dead zone. Nothing works in Creekside. Creekside's empty. And it was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe. We'll see. Because for us, we could see potential. There's a gondola there. There's free parking, bus stops, valley trail for biking, supermarket, gym, bank, all the amenities for locals. So actually, it has actually ended up being a good location for us. And we have proved people wrong. But the first year we had a lot of sarcastic people coming in, how's business? And then telling us how like nothing works in this spot. Well, now they stopped saying that. They've stopped saying that. So I think we've proven that business is going pretty well. And so that was a bit of a challenge, kind of just overcoming the negativity. And then, just learning how to hire and train staff effectively, learning what advertising or marketing mediums work and which ones don't work, and sort of wasting money on things like recruitment, wasting money on print ads. I say waste money because you can't really tell how much traction you get from an ad. So it's kind of learning a lot about all that kind of stuff if you have no background in it. And then obviously COVID was a huge thing to navigate for people that had been in business less than a year. So losing your staff and feeling like you're kind of starting from the ground up again when you thought that you would be a lot further along in the journey. Those have been some of the challenges.
At the same point, that was kind of a benefit to us because we didn't rest on our laurels. We were still kind of in our first year. We were a week away from our first birthday of the business. And we were just like, okay, well, how do we pivot? That was the sort of word everyone was using.
This is when COVID hit.
When COVID hit. So kind of we used that to our advantage, and we weren't going to let it, pull us down. We had sold our house and invested everything. We did, fully our, what's the word? USP. We really believed in our concept. So we just had faith in both of us that we could ignore all these people that were hating on us or that were doubting us and just keep going.
And we used the COVID challenge as an opportunity to gain media attention. As you know, we got mentioned in Forbes magazine for such a quick pivot, a 24-hour turnaround from closing down to launching online, just reacting super fast because we just thought we've got so much momentum. We have record sales month and month. We can't just close down and sit back and wait. Like, we have to keep going and keep getting people bread. And that they really appreciated that because all the other bakeries and shops just totally shut down with no messaging or anything. Whereas us, it was like, we're online, order now. And the orders were coming in. I was like, oh God.
That's an interesting one because, like you say, the hospitality industry was hit very hard by COVID, and the tourism industry was hit by COVID. So just before we dive in a little bit more to the COVID, pre-COVID, what would you say, like, who were your main customers? Like, were they mainly like compared like with locals compared with visitors, whether it's day trippers or tourists? Who were your main clientele? Like roughly what sort of percentage were which?
Yeah, I'd say it was probably 50 because 50% locals, 50% tourists, because we still class the locals. We have Whistler, but we have Squamish, which is a town 30 minutes drive south, and Pemberton, which is 20 minutes north. And like a lot of those.
Just frozen a bit and we can't hear you. We've got a little technical glitch. Sorry, we just had a technical glitch.
Residents, we all see by
Ed, I'm going to have to pause you. Your internet is doing something weird and we can't hear you properly.
Back. Oh no.
I'm back now.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I think you're back now. Your internet's I think your internet's very weak at the moment. So we missed, I think, most of what you'd said there, Ed.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll just backtrack. So we were 50%
so
locals 50/50. And 50% tourists. 50/50 exactly, and that's that's pretty consistent throughout the year.
Wow.
But I mean, the tourism's changed. So whereas there were a lot of Europeans and Americans, obviously before COVID, coming to ski Canada, and obviously now it's been a lot more Canadians who haven't been able to leave Canada. So they might have gone to other resorts, but they all come to Whistler now because it's probably the best ski resort in Canada, if not North America.
Okay, good to know. All right, I'm just hoping the internet's going to hold because it is keep cutting out. So we'll have to see what we can do there. I know I can see it's just quite weak. Your signal's quite weak because you're a bit fuzzy, but I'm just more concerned about the audio. If your visuals go, it's not so much, but as long as we've got audio. And I can edit this bit out in the audio episode. So, all right, we'll see how we go. So with COVID, so it hit, and like you said, you pivoted very quickly. So how did you go from literally like overnight to being able to order online? Because I would have thought that would take time, like setting up, you know, a system and an online store and all of that. Tell us a little bit briefly, how did you do that so quickly? Yep, you've frozen again and I can't hear you. Can't hear you at all. I'm not sure. We're having little technical issues if anyone's watching live. Don't know if you might want to try and log out and log back in again, but
we're not back yet.
Now you are. Now you are. Yeah, you were gone. Okay, you were gone cool. You were gone for a little while.
Oh. So the website platform we were using was Squarespace, and we knew that there was a commerce function, but we'd never upgraded to that before. We just had a kind of website portal for people to read our menu and that kind of thing for the in-store kind of offering. So we just upgraded to a commerce platform through the Squarespace website. And because it's like they have a template, it was pretty user-friendly. There was a little bit of like figuring stuff out. The biggest issue I had was figuring out how to schedule people so that they came at a specific time, because there were no guidelines then on how to operate. We kind of had to make it up. So we had to schedule people as 5-minute pickups. We would do 10 hours of that back to back. And then it just kept creeping like earlier and later until it'd be like, I don't know, like 8 o'clock in the morning, I think 7 p.m. or something. It was getting out of hand. So trying to integrate scheduling, that was a real challenge. And I actually got on the phone to Silicon Valley and spoke to them like techie people. I didn't know what I was doing. And some really nice but very wealthy tech engineer said, I'm just going to do this for you, because he could see my website and how much money we were taking. It was like, people usually pay me like $500 an hour, but I feel for you guys. I'm gonna do this for free. And he integrated it for us, and he was a bit of an angel actually. Wow. So he really helped us. So I just feel like, I don't know, the stars aligned, and this whole journey has just been like, if it's with the mantra, if it's easy, do it, and if it's difficult, stay away. And when everything's kind of easy and people show up at the right time and things just slot into place, you know you're on the right path. So that's kind of how it all went. But I've actually had to upgrade the website since, and sort of integrate more advanced scheduling and stock like daily inventories that don't affect each other. It's all quite technical and boring. I won't bore all the listeners with it, but we've upgraded since to a more advanced platform so that we can be more pandemic proof in the future.
Got it. I love it. Wow. So let's talk about you've obviously had success like pretty much since you've opened. You know, like you said, you proved the locals wrong. You've opened in a place that, you know, where it wasn't really happening, and you've really kind of created something. So let's dive in a little bit about how you've done that. So how have you attracted people to your business? First of all, let's talk about vegan versus plant-based, because I know you referred to as, you know, an organic sourdough plant-based bakery. So tell us about the use of vegan versus plant-based and why your choice of those.
I think when we first opened the bakery, this sort of like 2.5 years ago, or even 3 years ago, when we were planning the concept of the bakery and how that word plant-based vegan were used, it's changed so much in that short amount of time. You know, we've seen these huge corporations take on plant-based options, and they're not even plant-based. So it's the trust issue. But for us 3 years ago, we wanted to make it acceptable and like inviting for everyone. And that's what we always said. We were like, we're a plant-based bakery. Everyone eats plants. Everyone's welcome. But now what we found is we're using it more and more in our media, the word vegan, because people are demanding vegan options and they want that security. When they come in, they say, no, what is vegan? Because they know that other companies, it's a bit blurred, the lines between plant-based and vegan, and some people are, you know, not using it correctly. So now we are using vegan more and more. We say everything's vegan, and you can see it in the customer's face. They're just like relief. They're like, wow, I can choose everything.
Or disbelief. And they go, is that vegan? You go, yeah, that's vegan. Is that vegan? Yeah, everything's vegan. Is that vegan?
Coconut whip with, you know, your chai, and they're like, is it vegan? And we're like, yes.
Chocolate sprinkles on your cappuccino. I'm vegan. Yep. So are the chocolate sprinkles.
We have looked more and more into sort of certification and sort of having something on the door. You know, everything is vegan, and, you know, we look at all our products and all our sugars and things like that, you know, even products that you don't normally assume, or you assume are naturally vegan, but not always. So
we've come out the closet. We're closet vegans. Now we're loud and proud.
And I love that. And so what impact does that have? Because given that I assume that your customers are not all vegans, you've obviously got a high percentage of people who are not vegan, or pre-vegan, as I like to call them. So what impact has that had now that you started to use the word vegan more? Because I remember I interviewed, in fact, they were in Canada, actually, a young woman, I can't remember her name, but she's in Canada, and she turned her health store completely vegan. And initially there was some pushback from customers, you know, from some customers, but you know, the business still carried on and was successful because enough people were either didn't mind or were happy that it had gone vegan. So what reaction have you had to kind of being more vocal and using the word vegan?
I think the people that are looking for vegan have noticed it, but people that are pre-vegan, as you say, haven't even noticed it. You know, for example, we're in Montreal now, and people, sort of our followers through Instagram and things, sending in recommendations that clearly aren't vegan restaurants or anything like that. So it's kind of like the people that are looking for it have found it and noticed it. And maybe it's attracting new customers as well that sort of were like, oh, they're just plant-based, but now we're vegan, it's more on the radar, and we're having Google reviews that are mentioning, you know, that we're vegan. So we're getting those keywords come up in Google searches as well.
People do say things sometimes like, I can't believe it's vegan, or you wouldn't even know it was vegan, which I'm slightly offended by when they say that, because I'm like, if they say like, oh, it tastes great, I love it, I go, yeah, it's because it's vegan. And I have seen like one young kid just kind of looked at me like sort of in horror, and then like, but I liked it. And you just saw his brain processing all those thoughts. But the customer mentality has changed so much. Like on opening day back in March 2019, when we opened the doors of the brick and mortar space, there were 4 ladies that came in, and they were dairy farmers from New Zealand, and they ordered coffee, and we had a whole conversation about which milk they would want, and they got really mad that we didn't have dairy. And one of them leaned in and she literally hissed at me, you should have dairy. And I just remember being like so overwhelmed by this response and just thinking like, are we really going to have like this conversation now? And I was just like, we had a whole line of people to serve, and we didn't want to put anyone else off. So we just said, so just the walnut and fig sourdough, is it for today? Or thank you very much. And just kind of got rid of them. But nowadays people come in, and if they order a coffee and we say, oh, oat milk's okay, literally every single person is just like, yeah, fine. Or they'll say like, oh, actually, do you have almond? Yeah, we do. So we just found that people aren't bothered anymore. That's just what we found. And obviously for the lactose and egg allergen people, they're so happy. If it's a mum and their kid's lactose intolerant, they can't go anywhere and get something for them. So when they come to us, a few of the mums have said that their kids have got allergies, or their husband or whatever, and they're just really delighted that they can trust us, because they can't trust other places.
That's a really good point, and I think that's becoming more of a thing now. I know certain, like England's or the UK's oldest like chocolate manufacturer had a big market, getting allergen with the allergen market. It's a whole other market, so it's certainly useful, I think, for people to know about, because it can open you up to extra customers. And I know one of our listeners, Heather Landex, is very in on that, so I'm sure she'll be delighted on that. So talk us through some of the marketing strategies. I know you said, Natasha, that you would kind of trial and error. You tried a bit of print advertising, but you can't really track it. So how have you got customers to your cafe certainly in the beginning, what was not a really happening area? How did that happen? What would have been some of the most successful marketing strategies for you?
I'd say Instagram is big.
Yeah, Instagram has definitely been very powerful for us. I think people are generally interested in food. It's very visual through Instagram. And also you can do tutorials, which have been really helpful, because it's kind of sharing knowledge for free. So they're getting something, there's a bit of, give and take there. They can see daily specials. So that's been really popular. And then also, in 2020, with the beginning of the pandemic, it felt like half of the world was making sourdough. So again, a lot of new followers there, questions about how to make bread. People had time. They knew it's a healthy option for bread. It's a fermented product. It's vegan anyway. So I think that really helped us as well. And now the people that either are still
making can I just pause you there? How did that help you, given that if people around the world were making their own bread, how did that help you as a business?
Because they suddenly realized how difficult it is. They got through process of trying to make it, they got educated and they developed a much deeper appreciation for the craft. And when they went back to work, or when they tried a sourdough for a few weeks and it didn't work, they suddenly were a lot more drawn to buy sourdough regularly from Ed. And even though there was a pandemic,
so that will be more people that were coming into your store. I was just curious if you'd managed to monetize like people internationally, you know what I mean, like have been making the bread, but then unless they come to Whistler, they can't buy it from you. So
well, we did start doing consultations with other bakers around the world. We added that as a feature, and it was because there was so much interest during that sourdough craze that we were getting inundated with questions. It was taking up so much time that we said, well, you know what, if you want all this knowledge and time, that's fine, but there's a price on it. So we added a consultation package to our website, and we found people in like really random places like Jamaica and St. Lucia, and sometimes more local in Vancouver, but people took advantage of that. So we were able to get a little bit of income through doing that.
And I think also, even if they're not in Whistler or even Canada, they might, you know, tag a friend. Oh, you're going on holiday here, or you live in Vancouver. Have you been to BReD? So you can kind of monetize it through there, because it's kind of word of mouth still. It's kind of like a quick tag their friend, and they say, oh, you should check this place out. And we've had people say, oh, my daughter lives in Hong Kong, but she recommended that I come here, and they live in Vancouver. So that's been really nice. It's definitely been the most powerful social media tool that we've used. But like Natasha said, we've tried to add different streams of revenue through the website. So be the e-commerce or the consultation.
And also getting local press works really well. Whenever we get a full page spread on our bakery, we do notice an uptick in locals coming in, people that still say they've never heard of us. I'm like, really? Where have you been? But they come in, and getting the traction in Forbes was really helpful, because then I went to the local paper and said, hey, would you like to cover our pivot story? Sent them a press release. At first, the editor said, a lot of businesses are pivoting. Wasn't that bothered. And then I was able to leverage Forbes and say, oh, really? Oh, Forbes are interested, but hey, I guess you're not. And then suddenly it was like, they were interested, and they did a big page on us. And we actually managed to attract our biggest spending customer we've ever had. Very wealthy person that would come in and spend anywhere between $250 to over $700 per order, which is just unheard of in a small micro bakery. So that definitely worked. And that was all through what I learned through doing Katrina Fox's media course, Vegans in the Limelight. Little plug there.
I swear I haven't paid her to say that. I swear.
This is a live testimonial from my heart.
but you know what I love about you, Natasha, is that you took action. You know what I mean? Because and especially like with local media, you know, they are looking for local stories. And I love that you were able to go, and I love the fact that you said that, well, okay, you're not interested, well, Forbes were. And that was a great story. And you were willing to put yourself out there and, you know, risk being rejected, because yes, sometimes you get rejected, but you really do the work. And I really love that. So I love that that's worked out for you. So Instagram's worked out well, and also the media coverage. And do you have people opting in to your own newsletter, like to gather your own list as well?
Yeah, we do. Because of changing over websites, we've had sort of issues connecting different MailChimp and SEO optimization stuff. I don't really know that much about that stuff. I kind of have a little team that we work with for that. But there has been a bit of a lull in signups recently, but we're getting back on track now, because everything should be sorted out. And we were seeing kind of double numbers on signups month to month before we switched websites. So we do have a list of, I'm not exactly sure where it is now, but last I saw it was like 500. And so we only had a newsletter launched somewhere in the last year. So we're still working on growing that list. And
we tried to incentivize that by keeping it interesting. And they obviously like being a newsletter, they get the first notice when we're going to do specials for Christmas or for Easter, you know, hot cross buns. If people know, okay, it's live on the, you know, the online shop now, we see huge orders coming through because the newsletter's gone out. So it's been really beneficial for us to have that for the sort of, you know, marketing way.
We just had a record-breaking Thanksgiving weekend. Canadian Thanksgiving is in the middle of October, and we sent a newsletter out like the beginning of that week, and suddenly like all these orders came in, and it was quite overwhelming. It was really, really hectic. I couldn't believe how many orders came in. So it seems like we're just starting to learn how to leverage newsletters and make them work, and the timing of them and everything. So
I love that. I think that's great because it's great to have Instagram and social, and that's very visual, but it's great to be able to get them onto your own list as well in case anything ever happens, or if Instagram decides they don't like you anymore and all that kind of thing. So I love that you're leveraging that, and you just learn as you go along, and you figure out what works. What do you think makes you stand apart? Because obviously you're not the only bakery in town, so to speak. So what do you think makes you set apart and will continue to help set you apart from others?
I think people.
Oh, you're just cutting out.
The atmosphere when they come in the bakery. Plan 2/3. So we make everything. We make everything in house.
Yeah.
You hear me now? Yeah. So we bake everything fresh every morning. I've always liked when I started BReD in 2016 out of the restaurant. You know, parents would bring their kids and they can see where the bread's made. And there's just the nice connection there. So I think that's a lot of bakers are known to bake through the night. You come in, the baker's finished for the day, you know, whereas for us, it's quite loud sometimes, which makes it quite difficult to serve customers because you're kind of like, sorry, what did you say?
It's noisy.
But it's, you know, people's glasses get steamed up. But I think generally people love the action.
They can see
They can see it, and they can see how fresh it is, and they can smell the product. And they sort of hug, you know, they get a warm bread from the shelf and they kind of hug it like a baby. So I think that's a massive part of our USP is not just that we're vegan, that we're baking fresh product every day. We don't ever sell anything day old. If we have anything left, it normally goes to the local food bank. So we really strive for 100% zero waste. We hate food waste. I don't even want to really think about percentages. You know, you have these big corporations like Starbucks that allocate 25 or 30% food waste, and for me that's just not even an option. I aim for 5% or less, and if it is, you know, just an unusual slow day, then it goes to the food bank or to other local businesses that will vote us because they're directly tasting the product themselves.
We've lost you again.
Tree for every coffee we sell. All our packaging is compostable. We're plastic free. That's something the locals buy into. We use seasonal organic produce as much as we can. We support and promote our local farmers that are growing it biodynamically and have heritage, grain heritage, fruits and vegetables that we try to use mainly in the summer. This time of year, as fresh produce becomes unavailable, we switch to using more dry foods, dry fruits and chocolate and things like that. So the menu's always changing as well. You can't come in and get the same stuff all the time. We only make banana bread in the winter when we can't get fresh fruit, and we use fair trade, organic and second grade bananas. So even though it's like a long distance fruit with a big footprint, we're trying to do it as nice as we can. For the environment. And I think a lot of baking, the industry is not focused on the environment. It's not focused on sustainability. And they're very hard set in their ways and not willing to sort of change. Some bakeries don't even have any vegan options, which is mind blowing to me when you've got like Burger King bringing out vegan stuff. And then the bakery down the road are just like, we're not vegan at all. And it's just like, well, you're missing out on a huge segment of the market there. So good luck.
Exactly. What about pricing in terms of, given that you're organic, like you mentioned, you're fair trade, so presumably that means that, you know, and it shouldn't be that way. And I've said this a lot, you know, it shouldn't be expensive for a business to be ethical, but it is. So how do you kind of manage that and still have a sustained, like, you know, obviously, you know, presumably having to charge customers a bit more than they would get from a regular bakery. How do you manage that and still manage to have a sustainable business?
So,
well, actually, what we found, Katrina, is actually our food cost is very good, or it's where it should be. But actually, it's our labor really we struggle with, because everything is handmade, and slow fermentation. Sometimes you just have to let the bread, wait till it's ready. So obviously you keep yourself busy doing other things, but we haven't actually increased our prices in the 2.5 years that we've been open. So with the increase in labor cost, we pay all of our staff more than 10% above the average living wage and everything like that. The minimum wage, to make sure it is a livable wage. And we don't take tips ourselves, even though we can, because we work on the floor. We give them to our staff to make sure we look after our staff, retain staff. So that's now going to be reflected more in our pricing. So we will be doing.
Yeah, I've lost you again.
Degrees.
Sorry, I've lost you again.
We're actually under.
Hopefully we'll be back soon. We're going to keep talking till you can hear us.
Okay.
Can you hear us now?
I can, yeah. It just keeps dropping out. It's a shame.
So annoying.
So you pay the staff the livable wage. So how do you manage that with customers? Like, are they kind of grumpy because why is this product so expensive? I'm just curious, how are you doing all of that, which is great, and still make a profit?
What we do is we have, what's really important for us is upselling. So if somebody orders a cinnamon bun, would you like some cream cheese frosting with that? And it is an extra price. It has to be, because we're using vegan cream cheese. We're making it ourselves and all of that. So you buy a baguette. Would you like some hummus and olives with that? We're making ethical hummus. We're using organic chickpeas, organic tahinis. We're paying a Canadian in a ski resort to hand peel the garlic, because we don't want to use any slave labor out of China. There's hand squeezing lemons and things, and it's as ethical as you can get, because a lot of commercial hummus out there, if you actually look into it, it may not have very ethical ingredients. So people can see that, they taste it's better, and they come back, and it's repeat custom. It's having a good quality product that people believe in. They'll come back and they'll buy again and again and again.
And I think that comes, like Natasha said, it comes from education, like letting the customers know. So how do you inform them of that? You do blog posts on our website, and you do, stories on Instagram or posts of where we're sourcing the product from. We really love foraging mushrooms. So on our time off, we go and forage mushrooms from the local forest. Of course, all edible ones, and we're very safe. We only pick the ones that we know. But then they can see that through Instagram, through the story, us picking those mushrooms, preparing the mushrooms, and then having these delicious lunch specials that are available. And again, no one else is doing that where we are. So it kind of adds that extra excitement to the journey and to our
profit margins are not massive.
Sorry, we just lost you again.
And the customers
ended on you forage mushrooms, and the customers can see you doing that.
Yeah, now profit margins may not be as big as other companies, but we're not focused just on profit. I mean, what's the point of a growing economy if the environment's suffering? We're way more on a spiritual path of doing what we feel is the right thing to do. And as long as we make enough money to pay our staff and our costs, and we are for profit as a business, but we're not focused just on profit. And I think that's a major differentiation between what we're doing and maybe what other massive scalable companies are looking at. We kind of just believe in taking what you need and having enough money in the bank to pay everyone, and have a nice life ourselves without being over extravagant. I think that's really what we're about, and so we can keep the prices
and
more affordable.
Hopefully influence other businesses that they can see, okay, a vegan business will work in Whistler, and there is the demand. So I think we hope to inspire other people, to take that leap, and it is worthwhile, and it will make it different from other businesses, and there is enough of a market there.
Nice. And you mentioned that you sold your house to start the business. So, and then since then, how has it been funded? Has it kind of literally just paid for itself? Or talk to us a little bit about that.
We had to borrow more money. It was very expensive. We needed big specialized equipment that would come from Italy. And we sell espresso coffee, so we needed a coffee machine and all these. It was mostly the equipment and the build out.
We had to put everything in, didn't we?
We had to put everything, but so selling the house actually was only 50% of the money that we needed.
Oh, wow.
But by going to these community lenders, we didn't go to banks. They had good interest rates, and some of them offered, some assistance, be that business advice or like a mentor. So we'll still be paying that off for quite a while.
We paid off one of our loans, and that was really funny because I paid it all quite early because I noticed the interest rates were quite high. My accountant was like, you should really try and get this loan paid off. And I was like, do you know what? We've got the money to pay it off. Let's just pay it off. And then they wrote back to me and they said, are you closing down the business? And I said, no, we're doing really well, actually. That's why I'm paying you off.
Nice.
They were just like really surprised that like somebody had actually paid off their loan in the middle of COVID. Wow. So we still have one more loan to pay off. We're scheduled to pay it off within the next year and a half. And then we'll be able to pay more back to ourselves. It's a slow burner, but we believe in the longevity of what we're doing. So
we're definitely on track. We're making overpayments and things like that, but it's definitely it's not an easy journey, and that keeps us motivated to pay off those loans and pay ourselves back and things like that. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So a couple of questions, last questions before we wrap up. So Natasha, as much as you're comfortable sharing this, I know that you shared that you went through the foster care system in the UK and you're now a successful entrepreneur. And this is interesting because I was listening to a podcast the other day and it was an American guy. I can't remember his name or which podcast it was on because I listened to a variety, but he was saying he grew up in foster care and he actually said that there are statistics that show that kids going through the foster care system typically are quite disadvantaged and they don't always have the success in life or in business. So I'm curious, do you think that you're, because of what you went through, is your success in spite of that or because of it? Is there anything that, you experienced that you think maybe has helped you as an entrepreneur?
It's both in spite of and because of, because when you grow up in and out of foster care, the whole system is designed unintentionally to keep you in that disadvantaged state. So for example, when I was 16, social workers wanted to get me out of my foster home and into my own apartment or flat. And they had a sort of carrot of £1,000 startup fee. And the reason is because I was taking up the placement that another child could have. But I knew that I wanted to go to university. And I knew that if I went into a flat on my own, I wouldn't achieve that. I needed the structure of a family environment, somebody to make meals for me so I could study and that kind of thing that other 16-year-olds have. But there was a lot of pressure, and even to the point where the social worker didn't talk about it in front of my foster parents. She took me to a McDonald's and would buy me milkshakes and would try and encourage me to do this. And they would sort of like try and butter you up, and they'd be like, kids like McDonald's, let's take the kid to McDonald's and like see if they want to move into a flat and get them out of that foster placement. And I remember just always having to say to social workers, but I want to go to university. Also, like my mum had serious mental health, which is why I was in and out of care a lot. And none of the school teachers or even the students were supportive at all. They sort of treated you like you were going to end up in the same way. And I had people tell me that as well. I had a foster mother when I was 8 tell me that I was going to end up where my mother ended up and all really horrible things. So it's definitely in spite of that. However, when you have a challenge, say like COVID, for example, or any other challenges you might have with difficult staff members or something like that, you sort of cast your mind back to terrible times in your life. Like when I was 14, I left home because I was convinced my mother was going to lock me in a shed and leave me there and I would die. And I was painting the shed and she'd said to me, you need to paint this shed so it's good enough to live in. And she'd already kicked me out my bedroom and told me I wasn't worthy of having a bedroom. And in my mind, I was painting this shed and I'm like, she's going to lock me in this shed and I'm going to die here. And that's when I sort of left home. So whenever I have like a bad time, I'm like, well, at least I'm not painting a shed to live in, to die, and be killed in, basically. So you sort of cast your mind back to these horrific things. You think, this is a walk in the park. You know what I mean? Like, I've been through much worse than this. Like whatever happens, I'm still going to be fine, no matter, because I've got out of these situations, much worse situations before, and survived them. So I definitely think that I have an advantage in my disadvantage, that I can get through anything. Whereas I watched a lot of other people suffer from stress and anxiety of life's challenges. I'm like, it's nothing. I dealt with much worse than this at a much younger age. So resilience, it's given me resilience.
I was just going to ask about resilience, because I know when I wrote my book, Vegan Ventures, and I interviewed over 60 vegan entrepreneurs, and I said, what do you think the number one quality is, or what do you think the different qualities are? And the number one was exactly that. It was resilience, because you've got to have that in running your own business, because it's not all smooth sailing. There's going to be lots of challenges here and there. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's important for people to hear, that it doesn't, necessarily matter from your background. You can, it can be possible to overcome that. So really appreciate you sharing that. So finally, tell us anything about the future. So you've got the one business at the moment in Whistler. What are your future plans? Are you looking to scale? Will you have investors? Are you going to write a book? Hint, hint, you should. Tell us a bit about any future plans you'd like to share with us.
I mean, there's lots of things we'd like to share with you, Katrina. And there's definitely possibilities on the horizon in the future. There's potential to write a book.
There's interest.
There's interest from a few publishers and things like that. So there's definitely an avenue we want to go down, because there is a huge gap within vegan baking and sourdough. And then we're not sure. We're to and fro with another location, or just improve and expand our current offerings. Like at the moment, we're only able to open 4 days a week because of staffing shortages within Whistler. So we definitely want to expand that to 5 or 6.
Oh, we've just
so that's definitely a route we want to go down and expand our.
You just said you were hoping to open 5 to 6 days a week. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you need to expand into the resources that you have before you start going elsewhere and taking on. We see other bakers open up second bakeries, and then within a year or two they've either shut down the whole operation, or they've shut down one of the spots. So we sort of watch other people in the industry and see where they went wrong, and wonder if it's actually scalable in that way, to have multiple locations without sacrificing the quality of the product. You have to have very skilled staff that you trust to run another place for you. And that can be a challenge in an artisan sourdough environment.
I think for us, because we're in such a niche, being in a ski town, not everyone can afford to come to Whistler. I think for us, a good avenue that we are looking into is video tutorials that people can sign up and do online tutorials, because having 6 people in the shop learning directly from me is great and really fun. But I think it could spread a lot further if we did videos and people sign up to online courses. Could definitely be an avenue we'll look at.
Especially with your skills, Ed, like you've got the cachet of being a fine dining chef, which I think is good. So you can leverage that for sure. Wonderful. Well, look, it's been so lovely talking to you both, because as I say, I've sort of watched you grow over the years and really kind of put yourselves out. And I think you're the epitome, of a hardworking, business people who are new to this, both had separate careers, working for other people, and you've really made a go of this. You continue to go from strength to strength. You put yourself forward for awards, which were very well deserved. I'm so delighted that you won one. And I know that exactly. I know you're big collaborators, and one day, if I ever get over to that way, I will look forward to enjoying one of your some of your amazing creations. But really appreciate you sharing your journey, a lot of your insights. I think it will definitely help a lot of people. So if you are going to Whistler at any time, anybody, or even if you're not, go and check out Ed's BReD on Instagram, but also go and check out the website, which is edsbread.com. If you're watching the video of this interview, you'll see that URL scrolling along the bottom, and if you're listening to the audio version, then you will find that link on the show notes page for this episode. Ed and Natasha, it's been wonderful speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Katrina. It's a real honor to be on Vegan Business Talk.
Thanks, Katrina. We enjoyed it.
Wonderful. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and bye for now.